two guys standing out there in a place that's meant a lot to both of them. Let's see some more football.
Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Lions Roar News Center, beloved fans, so you never miss the latest updates. Now, let's dive right into the latest roster changes and what they might mean for the Lions as the season approaches. With Week 1 just around the corner, the Detroit Lions have already set their 53-man roster, but there are still movements happening behind the scenes. Recently, the Lions made some key adjustments, including adding defender Chris Smith to the active roster and promoting wide receiver Tom Kennedy and defender Kyle Pico from the practice squad. Coach Dan Campbell sees the practice squad as an extension of the main roster, and we're likely to see more changes as the season progresses, with injuries and other factors influencing lineup decisions. Players on the edge of the roster will need to fight week by week to keep their spots on the team. As the Detroit Lions finalize their 53-man roster for Week 1, adjustments are still underway. Recently, they added defender Chris Smith to the active roster while also promoting wide receiver Tom Kennedy and defender Kyle Pico from the practice squad. Head coach Dan Campbell considers the practice squad an essential part of the main roster, and weekly changes are expected. Players on the verge of being cut will need to continuously prove themselves to maintain their positions, especially with injuries potentially shifting the lineup throughout the season. Among the players who may not last the entire season on the 53-man roster is DB Lawrence Strickland. His impressive preseason earned him a spot on the roster, but a thumb injury sidelined him for Week 1. With uncertainty surrounding his recovery and the need for depth at other positions, Strickland could become a regular inactive player on game days. If his recovery takes longer than expected, he could even be waived with an injury settlement to free up space on the roster. Lawrence Strickland had a strong preseason, earning a spot on the Detroit Lions 53-man roster, but a thumb injury sidelined him for Week 1. Although his performance in practice has been promising, the uncertainty of his recovery could lead him to become a frequent inactive player on game days. If the injury persists, there's a possibility Strickland could be waived with an injury settlement to free up space on the active roster as the Lions continue adjusting their lineup for the season. Another player in a delicate position is Michael N., who surprised many by securing a roster spot after a strong summer. However, with the Lions possibly looking to add more veteran depth to the offensive line, N may be on the chopping block. His position on the team seems vulnerable, especially if injuries or other internal changes force roster adjustments. Despite his solid preseason performance, his spot on the team may be in jeopardy as the season progresses. Michael N. impressed by securing a roster spot with the Lions after a solid preseason showing. However, his position is still uncertain as the team considers bringing in more experienced veterans to strengthen the offensive line. N's spot on the team could be at risk, especially if the Lions need to make internal adjustments due to injuries or other changes. While he has done enough to earn a spot for now, N's future with the team is still in question. Lastly, James Houston, who stood out in the preseason with a sack, secured his spot on the 53-man roster. However, there are doubts about his ability to play a multifaceted role. With other talented rushers, like Isaac Uku and Mitchell Aguirre, on the practice squad, Houston will need to maintain a high level of performance to hold onto his place. Any slip-up or underperformance could open the door for one of these practice squad players to take his spot. Now, we want to hear from you, Lions fans. Do you think these players will survive the season on the 53-man roster, or is their time with the Lions running out? Share your thoughts in the comments below.